The night had just begun to breathe over Manila, painting the city in shades of gold and dust. The air was thick with noise, horns, footsteps, laughter, and the endless hum of survival. Amid the chaos stood a man with a worn-out guitar, his voice rising softly above the traffic lights and restless streets. Miguel Santos sang with his eyes closed, as if each note carried a piece of his soul. The world around him didn't stop, yet his music made time pause for those who truly listened. He wasn't famous. He wasn't rich. He was just a man who refused to let his dreams fade with the noise of the city. The people passed him by, some tossing a few coins, others barely noticing. But his voice didn't tremble. It had learned to survive rejection, hunger, and silence. The same voice that once sang lullabies to his dying father now echoed through Manila's sleepless streets. A flickering light bulb above him revealed a small Elvis Presley poster taped to the back of his guitar case. Miguel called it his lucky charm. He had grown up watching black and white clips of Elvis, mimicking the moves, the tone, the spirit. But tonight, there was something different in the air, a heaviness in his voice, a quiet pain behind every lyric. From a cracked window across the narrow street, Lorna Santos, his mother, listened from her small bed. Her health had weakened, but her faith in her son hadn't. Every night, she waited for that familiar sound, her boy's voice blending with the night wind, keeping her heart alive a little longer. And then came the question, the one that lingered like the echo of his song. Can a man who sings in the shadows ever be heard by the world? The night deepened. The coins in his tin can barely jingled, but Miguel smiled anyway. In his heart, he carried something priceless, a voice that refused to die. No one knew that the man singing beneath the neon lights of Manila would soon stand before millions. And shake the world with a song that would bring the king back to life. Long before anyone noticed his voice, Elian Cruz was just another child lost in the blur of Manila's forgotten corners. His home was a shanty made of rusted iron sheets, perched beside a drainage canal that overflowed every time the rains came. Inside, a single bulb flickered weakly, casting shadows that told stories of survival more than comfort. Elian had learned early what it meant to go to bed hungry. There were nights when Rosa quietly pretended she wasn't hungry so her son could eat the last handful of rice. She would hum old lullabies, her voice trembling but gentle, as if the melody itself could fill their empty stomachs. Elian listened, memorizing every note, every rise and fall. It was from her that he learned how music could hold pain and still sound beautiful. When Rosa left for work before sunrise, Elian would wander through the narrow alleys, carrying a plastic bag of old batteries, his small speaker, and the microphone that Tito Ben had repaired with tape. Singing was his only way to earn a few coins. The city had become his stage, the streetlights his spotlight. Children his age ran barefoot playing tag, their laughter echoing through the broken walls. Elian wanted to join them, but life had made him older than his years. He had no time for games, every peso mattered. Some days he'd earn enough for food, other days, nothing but dust and exhaustion. Still, he never stopped singing. Sometimes, the sound of his voice drifted through open windows of cafes or jeepneys waiting in traffic. A few people paused, startled by the purity of that tone coming from such a small boy. But moments passed, and life resumed its usual rhythm. Manila was a city that saw too much to stop for one dreamer. And yet, even in the darkest corners, light finds its way. One evening, as golden light spilled across the skyline, Elian stood by the footbridge near the market. The wind carried his song further than before, past the crowd, past the traffic, into the phone of a stranger who decided to record it. That one recording would soon travel farther than any of them could imagine. A spark had been lit, quiet, unseen, but it would change everything. Weeks turned into months, and hope began to move quietly through the Santos home again, this time in the form of a message on an old phone screen. It was an email, short and unbelievable. Congratulations. You have been selected to audition for America's Got Talent 2025. For a long moment, no one spoke. The words seemed too large to belong in their small kitchen. Leah read the message again and again, her heart pounding in disbelief. Raphael stood still, as if afraid that one wrong move might make the dream disappear. That night, they packed their few belongings, a guitar, a small notebook of songs, and a single photograph of their mother smiling between them. Elena watched with tears in her eyes, whispering blessings under her breath. Though she couldn't travel, her faith carried them both farther than any airplane ever could. The journey to Los Angeles was long, stitched together with airport announcements, sleepless hours, and quiet prayers whispered between clouds. From the airplane window, Leah gazed at the ocean stretching endlessly below, a mirror of everything they were leaving behind, and everything they were about to face. When they arrived at the audition venue, the world felt overwhelming. The building shimmered with lights, banners, and laughter that echoed from every corner. Performers from all over the world waited their turn, dancers stretching, magicians rehearsing tricks, singers humming to themselves. Raphael held Leah's hand tightly. The familiar warmth steadied them both. Around them, voices rose and fell in excitement, but their hearts were calm. They had not come for fame. They had come for faith, for the small girl who once sang to the sky and the boy who promised her that one day, the world would listen. As they stepped closer to the stage entrance, the noise faded into silence. The lights glowed brighter. The curtain separated the ordinary from the extraordinary. And for the first time, as Leah looked at Raphael, she realized, this was no longer a dream whispered to the wind. It was happening. Right now. The rooftop children of Manila were about to stand beneath a golden light. The stage was vast, an ocean of light and silence. Beyond its edge stretched a crowd of faces, their expressions hidden beneath the soft glow of anticipation. Cameras shifted, lights adjusted, and somewhere in the distance, a single breath echoed like thunder. Leah stood in the center, a small figure beneath the towering beams of gold and blue. Her heart drummed so loudly she could almost hear it through her microphone. Beside her, Raphael tightened his grip on the guitar, the same battered one that had survived every rooftop, every cafe, every night of doubt. They exchanged one glance, no words, just a quiet understanding. This was for their mother. For every sunrise they had sung to when no one was listening. Then, Raphael strummed the first chord. The sound was soft, trembling, but pure. It rippled through the air like the first drop of rain before a storm. Leah's voice followed, gentle at first, a whisper of longing that filled the silent hall. The song, half in English and half in Filipino, carried the weight of their story. It spoke of love that endures through poverty, of dreams that refuse to die, of promises made in the dark that find light again. As her voice rose, Raphael joined in harmony. Their tones blended perfectly, like two rivers meeting in one current. The audience leaned forward, spellbound. Even the judges, known for their steel and scrutiny, softened in their seats. By the time the final note trembled in the air, the hall had fallen completely still. No one clapped yet. No one breathed. The silence was sacred. Then, a single light flickered, the golden buzzer. Gold confetti burst from above, showering the siblings in a storm of light. The crowd erupted in cheers, tears glinting in countless eyes. Leah's knees gave way as Raphael caught her, both crying into each other's arms. They had sung their truth, not polished, not perfect, but real. And that truth had reached the world. In that moment, time stopped. Manila rooftops, cracked walls, sleepless nights, all of it dissolved into a single golden glow. They hadn't just sung a song. They had made history. The cheers still echoed in their ears long after the lights dimmed. Gold confetti clung to their hair, their clothes, their skin, tiny fragments of a dream that had somehow come true. Backstage, everything felt slower, softer. The adrenaline had faded, leaving only the sound of their breaths and the faint hum of celebration around them. Leah sat on a small bench, her voice trembling as she laughed through tears. Raphael placed his guitar beside her, the same worn instrument that had carried them across oceans. It seemed almost unreal, that something so ordinary, so fragile, had brought them here. A few feet away, a television screen replayed their performance. The camera zoomed in on their faces, the tears, the confetti, the light. Simon's words from moments ago played again, his tone filled with awe and disbelief. But neither Leah nor Raphael could hear it now. Their thoughts were somewhere else, home. In a hospital room thousands of miles away, Elena Santos sat up in bed, her eyes shining as the screen before her glowed. The nurses stood behind her, smiling quietly as the golden rain fell on her children. She pressed her hand against the image, as if she could touch them through the glass. Her lips moved in a silent prayer, not for fame or fortune, but for gratitude. For every hardship that hadn't broken them, for every song that had healed them. That night, as the world replayed their performance millions of times, the siblings walked out into the cool Los Angeles air. The city lights shimmered, distant yet familiar, like stars reflected on the rooftops of Manila. Raphael looked up, feeling the same breeze that used to brush against their faces back home. Leah closed her eyes and smiled. For the first time, their dream wasn't a whisper carried by the wind, it was a voice heard around the world. They had not only sung for themselves. They had sung for every child who ever believed that love could lift them higher than fear. And in that golden glow, the siblings from a humble rooftop had written their names, not in fame, but in history. The sky over Manila was heavy with rain when Miguel returned. The streets looked the same, crowded, chaotic, alive, but something inside him had changed. The city that once held his struggles now seemed to hold his purpose. He rushed through the hospital corridors, the guitar still slung across his shoulder, the confetti from the golden buzzer still tucked in his bag. When he reached his mother's room, the world grew quiet again. Lorna lay still, fragile, but when her eyes opened and saw him, they shone with a soft light, the kind that only a mother's love could hold. He sang for her that night. No cameras, no stage, no crowd, just the hum of machines and the rhythm of rain tapping on the glass. His voice trembled at first, but then it grew stronger, filling the room with warmth. It wasn't a performance, it was a prayer. A son singing to the heart that had carried him through every storm. Weeks passed, and though her body weakened, her spirit stayed. One morning, she asked him to return to America for the AGT finale, not as a contestant, but as a guest performer. She wanted the world to see what love could sound like. When Miguel stepped back on that grand stage months later, the lights didn't scare him anymore. He wasn't chasing a dream now, he was living his mother's. The moment the first note left his lips, the audience felt something shift. His voice carried the weight of distance, loss, and undying love. In Manila, nurses wheeled Lorna's bed near the hospital television. She smiled faintly as her son appeared, golden light surrounding him. When he sang the final words, her eyes filled with tears, proud, peaceful, complete. As the song ended, the crowd rose again, but Miguel didn't look for applause. He looked upward, whispering a silent thank you. After the show, he placed a small gold Elvis pin on his mother's bedside table, beside her photo. It wasn't a trophy, but something greater, a symbol of the dream they built together. The world would remember him as the Filipino Elvis, the man who brought back the king. But Miguel knew the truth, the real rebirth wasn't of Elvis. It was of love, faith, and a son who finally became the voice his mother always believed he was.